The Philadelphia Eagles just made Jalen Hurts the highest paid player in NFL history. What does that mean for the Birds moving forward? According to ESPN, the Eagles are the top landing spot for all-pro safety Budda Baker. But how realistic is that actually? And this former number 1 pick is being linked to Philly. Could we see Howie Roseman pull off another blockbuster trade for the second year in a row? Plus, Howard Eskin really believes this guy is a better option than Bijan Robinson? That can't be right. But first, let's run it. Hey guys, hope you all had a great weekend. I'm Josh Davis, and if you're new, I cover the Birds. So make sure to like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on so you're caught up to date on all the latest Eagles news. So you probably already know, unless you haven't been checking any notifications on Twitter or social media for that matter, but the Eagles have officially made Jalen Hurts the highest paid player in NFL history. And you see from Ian Rappaport, the Eagles have agreed to terms with Jalen Hurts on a 5-year, $255 million deal, making him the highest paid player in NFL history. Agent Nicole Lynn did the deal, which includes $179.3 million in guaranteed money. Also important to point out that there's a no trade clause, so it locks up Jalen until 2028. And why that's important is the deal will make Hurts $64 million through the first new year of his deal in 2024. The deal was structured around cap flexibility as the Eagles are looking to keep the team's window open for a long time. Another very important factor for this deal getting done is honestly beating the clock or racing against the clock. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you guys remember Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. Those are the guys who were trying to get a deal done and still are. And so if you had to wait, the chances are that this deal might have had to be more or an increase, because quite honestly, what we will probably see over the coming days, weeks, or months is a new deal of, hey, there's now another new highest paid player in the NFL. These are how these things go. But I've got to say, fantastic kudos to Howie Roseman and the organization, because you've just kept the franchise guy who was the MVP on your team, could have arguably been the MVP in the NFL this season, but he's incredible on the field as we know, but also he is that guy, the breed of one, the guy who is not afraid to do whatever it takes to win. And as Nick Sirianni said,
how good can Jalen Hurts be? No one knows what Jalen's ceiling can be, but I know, God willing, he can reach it because of all the factors that he has. So he's not all of a sudden different because he's still putting in the work like you've seen him put in the work the last couple years.
And now Jalen Hurts has been getting all sorts of congratulations across Twitter and social media. In fact, Lane Johnson was one of them who actually congratulated him. Obviously, he had a recent extension, but he says here, dinner on Jalen Hurts. Congrats, bro. Well deserved. Well, quite honestly, if you're going to ask him for dinner, he might just take you to the team's facility.
Instead of going out to eat all the time at these 5-star restaurants, you can simply cook at home, or a person like me, I'm going to take me a few to-go plates from the facility.
Sorry, Lane, you might be eating at the team's facility. Although, with this new recent contract, I don't think that Jalen has to worry too much about saving money. I love it, though. You guys know how I feel about Jalen Hurts, and quite honestly, I think most of us feel the same way. Yes, this is a deal where you're paying $51 million a year. He's the highest paid player in the NFL, but this is a guy that the whole team rallies around. I mean, we know from a couple days ago, Ndamukong Suh compared Jalen Hurts to Tom Brady.
Their work ethics and their determination to push other people around them in a positive manner. I think that's a great leadership trait, and everybody has their particular ways of doing different things. And the one thing I really like about Jalen, maybe because I'm very similar in that aspect of the way he leads is by example versus by always talking and yelling and doing those different particular pieces, where Tom was a little bit more boisterous, which rightfully so. And I think that's more of his personality to have those overall conversations to the ultimate group, to where Jalen likes to pull guys to the side, have those conversations, but also at the same time can address the entire group and has comfortability to do it in a very sharp way. But I got a lot of respect for that kid.
Why?
Jalen Hurts is one of those guys that just being around him for 10 to 15 weeks.
Yeah, it's just brief time.
Yeah. Like just seeing him work and the conversations that we were able to have centered around some business things that he's looking to do and some stuff that he has some opportunities with. Like, he is very sharp, very special, and he's a tireless worker.
Being able to retain him is huge for the organization. I'm not worried about the no trade clause. I think it's okay. Yes, it makes it harder to get out of a situation if this were to plummet like a Carson Wentz scenario, but I don't think that it's anywhere near the same types of situation because Carson Wentz had some other big glaring issues. Obviously with the injuries and staying healthy, of course, you could argue, yes, Jalen Hurts got a little bit banged up, but he is a different type of player and I think built a little bit better. Now, does it make the argument, do you get a player like a Bijan Robinson to extend his career? We'll save that for another day, but want to know what you guys think about the contract. Were you in favor? Is it too much? Should the Eagles not have offered a no trade clause? Let me know. Speaking of congratulations though, there is one that's very interesting, and recently Budda Baker just congratulated Jalen Hurts saying hard work always prevails. Congrats to Jay Hurts. Best thing about a guy like him is the work never stops. Okay, that's interesting. Is he possibly hinting at something? There's been a change to the Birds coaching staff, or more so an addition, but after head coach Nick Sirianni brought in another addition from the college ranks over the weekend. According to ESPN college football writer Pete Thamel, the Philadelphia Eagles are hiring Jacksonville State assistant coach Mike Diangelo in a defensive quality control role. He coached tight ends and receivers at Jacksonville State. Now, your first reaction to this might be, wait, I thought you said he hired them on the defensive side of the ball. And I did. But although Diangelo doesn't have any pro-level experience, he has coached in a variety of positions at the college ranks, and he has strong ties to Mike Sirianni, Nick's older brother. Diangelo spent 6 years with Mike Sirianni at Washington and Jefferson College. From 2007 to 2013, he served as secondary coach, quarterback and receivers coach, special teams coordinator, and also served as the program's strength and conditioning coordinator. Prior to that, Diangelo served as a safeties coach and defensive analyst under Rich Rodriguez at Arizona, Ole Miss, and the University of Louisiana Monroe. This really isn't out of character for Nick, as he's gone with several coaches from college ranks in the past, saying, "You're just looking for good coaches no matter where you find them. I had a lot of successes getting with guys at the college side. I like the hire. Sure, it's not a big name addition or anything grabbing major headlines, but Nick having extra information about Diangelo from his brother Mike surely helped in this process. I don't know what all they'll ask Diangelo to do as a defensive quality control coach, but hopefully that will amount to better in-game adjustments than what we saw from Jonathan Gannon." Speaking of Mr. Pew Pew Pew, could the newly appointed head coach of the Arizona Cardinals be sending Philly a thank you gift? So if you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, on Friday, Adam Schefter broke the news with Pro Bowl safety Budda Baker has requested a trade from the Arizona Cardinals. My initial reaction was, sure, we'll see how that turns out. But yesterday we got word from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler that Philly is looking like a realistic landing spot for the All-Pro, saying people I've talked to around the league are at least looking to Philadelphia because they have a need at safety with CJ Gardner-Johnson leaving in free agency. But my understanding is they don't have a lot of money to spend because they signed other players, so it could be tough. On one side of the argument, people are saying, why would Howie spend that much money if CJ Gardner-Johnson wasn't kept here or offered anywhere close to the amount that they'd have to pay Budda Baker? And then CJ Gardner-Johnson actually weighed in on the matter yesterday, tweeting, "Heard they looking for me," with the eye emoji. But then Eagles fans answered back saying, "Budda will make us forget about you with him being a 5-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time All-Pro." Although Budda is certainly the better player, he still has a $16 million cap hit this season and another $18 million cap hit in 2024. So Howie Roseman would really have to like the potential of this acquisition in order to pursue it. And then the other question is, what would you have to give up to get him? Maybe Nick Sirianni can call on Jonathan Gannon Godfather style and ask for a favor?
Someday, and that day may never come, I'll call upon you to do a service for me.
I mean, it's worth a shot. Brendan Deeg summed it up best by saying, Nick Sirianni carried Jonathan Gannon to a head coaching job. The least he could do is help get him Budda Baker. Let's get serious though. I don't really see this as a legit option based on some of the points I've already mentioned. It's a pretty steep price, and based on the signings that Howie's already done, I just can't see him spending that much money. But, perhaps we see something crazy on draft night. We've seen it before, so it wouldn't be out of the question. Anyway, do you guys remember rumors of Dalvin Cook possibly being traded earlier this offseason? Well, according to Jeremy Fowler, the situation has apparently intensified with the Vikings possibly cutting the Pro Bowl running back by draft time, saying, I'm told all options are on the table, and he could be released if things don't work out. The Vikings also already talked to at least one team about a trade in the past. That doesn't particularly sound good for a guy who was certainly a major part of the Skull offense last season, where he ran for 1,173 yards, 8 touchdowns, along with catching 39 balls for 295 yards and 2 additional touchdowns. But such is the life of NFL running backs, and we've already seen Ezekiel Elliott, who was an integral part of the Cowboys offense, being released, as well as the same for Leonard Fournette of the Bucs. So should the Eagles look into getting Cook if he gets let go? Howard Eskin seemed to think so, as he said, there's another running back that is likely to be available for the Eagles, so maybe people in WIP can stop with the nonsense that the Birds should take running back Bijan Robinson with the 10th pick in the draft. Vikings likely will cut running back Dalvin Cook. He would be perfect for the Eagles. With all due respect,
that doesn't mean you get to say whatever you want to say to me.
I absolutely disagree with that statement. Those of you who've watched the show know how I feel about Bijan, spelled with an A. Also, Dalvin Cook has been dealing with a shoulder injury since 2019. Let's not forget about that. I know he just got surgery, so perhaps he's better, but I'm not sure I want to sign up and take the risk of a player who has that lingering injury, also over 1,300 carries. And Pro Football Focus has grades where Cooks is significantly declining in yards after contact, as well as expected yards rushing versus NFL averages. So for me, I'm out. I'm personally out on him. But what do you guys think? Is Cook worth adding? And I guess if so, how much would you be willing to pay for him? Let's move on. The Washington Commanders were sold earlier this week, or maybe not. According to the Washington Post, Daniel Snyder and the Washington Commanders had found a new majority owner, with the Josh Harris Group submitting a $6.05 billion bid to purchase the team. Only there have also since been reports that Snyder views the final price as a little disappointing. And there's apparently another bid in play by DC native Brian Davis for $7 billion cash. Davis reportedly can pay the first $1 billion to Snyder within 24 hours, while coming up with the rest of the $6 billion within 7 days. Another nugget, Davis is even willing to indemnify Dan Snyder, which basically means he's willing to accept any legal liability related to the ongoing investigation into the organization. This was a great concern, obviously, of the past, because Snyder didn't want to be found out or obviously investigated, so he's kind of leaning that direction. To me, that's a huge commitment. I don't know if the deal is too far along for Snyder to back out, or if he will, or just kind of how this plays out, but Snyder's obviously trying to skate clean in this deal, and he's really hoping that it gets done where Davis can kind of free him up in the case. It appears right now, based on reports, that Josh Harris's offer is still the one that's going to be moving forward, but we did get a report of a re-raise or a consideration here, and so either way, there will be a new regime in Washington, and it could mean a fire sale. Ed Cracks of SI.com says former first-round selection Chase Young is one of those players Washington could be shopping. He says Young, the 3rd overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, is coming into the final year of his rookie contract. The Commanders have until May 2nd to pick up the 5th-year option. A torn ACL suffered in Week 10 of Young's second season lingered into last year, and he played just 3 games. The hope would be that he would revert to the form he showed in 2020 when he won the Defensive Rookie of the Year award following a season in which he had 7.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries after bursting onto the scene from Ohio State. Ed makes a great point here, and although yes, Young has suffered some injuries like he mentioned and struggled to get his career jump started in a major way, I think this is a deal you have to strongly consider, because the fact that Young is only 24 years old, with his best years of football presumably ahead of him, it would be something I could get behind. I mean, especially because this is a guy who hasn't been able to produce on the field since his rookie season, so the hope would be that his asking price isn't too high. Prax also really strengthens the argument here, saying the Commanders just gave defensive lineman Deron Payne a new deal this offseason, signing him to a 4-year, $90 million deal on March 12th. That came on the heels of a contract extension for defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, who signed a 4-year contract extension last July worth $72 million. Young only adds to that cost, and maybe the new owners may decide that it's too much to spend on 4 players, and Roseman finds a way to swoop in. I wouldn't mind seeing an overall pick added to this already dominant defensive line. I mean, you add him, especially like I mentioned with him being so young, it seems like a no-brainer, but would Washington really consider trading within the division? I don't know. That's the question. I would love it, but curious to know what you guys think. All right, please do me a favor. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Make sure to subscribe. Mock draft coming out soon, so be on the lookout for that. Appreciate the support as always. Until next time, I'm Josh Davis, and this has been the Philly Special.